few weeks back, the Environment Protection Agency took down a tweet it had posted encouraging people to eat less red meat. It said, "Ready to be healthier, wealthier and more fabulous? Cut down on your red meat intake." And it also suggested people should try veggie lunches and meat-free Mondays. Brian, you just had a good run there, but you were particularly upset by this and you got them to take it down.
I think farmers are upset. I think rightly so. I suppose, like the
what
first thing
was wrong with it, though? I mean,
well, you know, I'm going to quote Laura Burke on this because I think she put it better than really anyone. She says it's a complex and nuanced topic, and that tweet was neither complex and nuanced.
Laura Burke from the EPA.
Yeah, EPA, and she decided to take it down. And I think that's fair enough. I think the EPA are not in the business of giving dietary advice. Neither am I, by the way. I think, listen, it's important that everyone eats a balanced diet, but I can't put it any better than Laura Burke herself.
Can I put this out to the... Yes. Yourself.
I'm another Laura, but I'm an environmental scientist. And the livestock industry, it's the #1 cause of water pollution. It's the #1 cause of biodiversity loss. It's the leading driver of greenhouse gas emissions in this country. And eating meat, eating red meat to the extent to which we eat it, will cross climate tipping points. The food system alone, with the meat industry as it currently is globally, we will cross the 1.5 degree tipping point just because of meat consumption and a little bit of rice on the side. So if we reduce our meat consumption down, we are doing one of the best things we can possibly do to address the linked crises of biodiversity and climate.
Okay, yeah, yourself very quickly. And then...
My name is John Deegan. I'm a carnivore. I eat nothing but meat.
Right.
Basically because I've done my own research into it. And meat is the only proper food for human beings that provides all the nutrients, all the fats that's needed. No one actually needs to eat an ounce of carbohydrate. It's actually not a necessary thing. So meat is actually will save the earth rather than the other way around.
Can I put to you, Minister, the reaction to that tweet and the fact that the IFA managed to get it reduced? Would you advise people to eat less meat?
I think there's a need for balance in any debate, and in terms of the
Have you cut down the amount of meat you've been eating?
No, I think I eat a healthy, balanced diet. So to say cut down would suggest that I ate too much meat to start with. I think I eat a healthy amount. I would agree that red meat is an important source of protein. To Laura's point there...
What is enough? What's bad? Would you do a meat-free Monday?
I tend to have fish on a Friday. It's more of a traditional thing. I'm not sure, but just on Laura's point, though, in terms of the...
Would you be very nervous to tell an audience of farmers that you were cutting down on meat?
No, because
obviously you produce meat yourself.
I'd be very slow to tell anybody what to eat. I think people are intelligent enough to do their own research and make up their own mind about things, and different people will have different views. But just in terms of a blanket, I'm very cautious of any statement here that is just like a simple, that's really bad, or this is black and that's white, and it's all binary. The fact of the matter is, our pasture-based system here in Ireland means that our livestock take an inedible protein for humans that is grass, and by eating it, converting it into energy and meat, turn that into an edible protein. That is a very important part of people's diets. We need protein, whether it's meat or it's another way that you get that. So that's what sets us apart. That is a unique selling point for us. I have two key roles of responsibilities in the Department of Agriculture. One is in the area of trade, and you know, we are we export 90% of the food and drink that we produce. And in terms of the point that was made around sustainability and the economic and making a profit, we have a very clear approach here. Sustainability is a three-legged stool. You can't have environmental sustainability if the farmer doesn't have economic sustainability, and the social sustainability of our rural communities that depend on that agricultural activity.
Can you have environmental sustainability if you're driving output to the degree?
You absolutely can, and that comes to the second part of my roles and responsibility in the Department of Agriculture, where I have responsibility for research, and we spend over €20 million a year in the Department of Agriculture alone on research into solutions to the challenges we face in agriculture to reduce the emissions from our food production system, because we need to...
But we're not anywhere near...
But we are
we're not anywhere near meeting the targets.
We are making huge progress. We are reducing the emission profile of our food production system, and farmers are taking great efforts in terms of making progress on the areas like water quality. I need to put that to
Jennifer Whitmore. Jennifer Whitmore, we're making huge progress, the Minister says.
I think the Minister is just ignoring the reality of the facts and the data that we see that the EPA produce. That, you know, all the organisations are pointing and showing us that actually our agriculture system is not sustainable. It is not working and operating within the environmental boundaries that it needs to operate within. Now, look, I think we're really at a crossroads when it comes to agriculture in this country, and I think there's a real opportunity opportunity actually for there to be a really involved discussion with the farming community and to determine what kind of agriculture system do we want going into future, what is going to actually be resilient, because we've heard from Jerry and the farmers have experienced, as you said, an awful year from a weather perspective. That is not going to change, that's just going to get worse. So what we need is actually to look at the land we have, to see exactly what we can sustainably produce on it, and for it to be profitable as well, because it needs to be profitable for the farmers. But this needs to happen, and there needs to be a pathway set out for the farmers to help them get there, because farmers know that there's changes coming down the road. They know they're going to have to make changes. What they need is, well, they need direction as to what you want, what the government wants from them, and how the government is going to support them getting there. And that support and that transparency and that pathway is not being made available for them. And what we're hearing is promises, a lack of recognition of the challenges that are being faced, and also direction as to how this can be achieved.
We said, and the lack of this point in terms of to look at the land we have, right? I think, again, as a farmer, and a farmer that was a beef and tillage farmer, that left that sector because it was economically vulnerable. Bottom line, I got into dairying because it offered me and my family a secure economic future, which it still does, despite the challenges. It still does, despite the challenges. But these are the facts, right? 50%, only less than 50% of Ireland is suitable, agricultural land is suitable for arable production. It is a tough business. It is, you need large scale. It is a very tough business. If we look at dairying, the point being you can make a good income off a relatively small block of land. Where we have extensive livestock productions and we move further west into marginal parts of the country, there is no real other option for those farmers. And okay, we can talk about forestry, but listen, the forestry programme is a fiasco. Bottom line, there's no farmer that could honestly put their hand up with confidence and say, I want to get into forestry for the long term. So I'm not saying that I don't believe in providing farmers with options, but let's provide them with an option that gives them an income, not weakens their income.
Okay,
because that's what we're talking about, the weakening farm income.
Brian, it also has to be within the environmental
I understand, but there's no point in doing that and having people worse off.
Okay, I want to bring John Gibbons, because John, you've been criticised for this in the past, because I know you've clashed with farmers on this, and they will say that you don't understand farming to the degree that they do, that you're suggesting solutions that have no viable run out for farmers.
Well, first of all, the Minister said that we export 90% of our produce, which is true. On the other side of the equation, we import about 85% of all the fruit and vegetables produced in Ireland. This is a disaster from a food security point of view. No. We have put the cart before the horse here. We've developed a system that has been built around the demands of basically agri-PLCs. They drive this system, right? They're pushing it, and the politicians are following behind, and the farmers are trailing behind them again. That's the system. What we need to do, I would respectfully suggest, is I think we need to scrap the Department of Agriculture and Teagasc and replace them with the Department of National Food Security. The challenge facing Ireland and every country around the world in the years and decades ahead is food threats arising from the climate emergency. We in Ireland are deeply food insecure. We need to stop basically using our Department of Agriculture to drive industrial policy that benefits a certain number of PLCs and a certain small number of industrial players. We need to do that. We need radical thinking, Martin. We're in a crisis. We need radical thinking.
John, there's nothing radical about sending Ireland back to farming systems in the 1950s, which effectively you are proposing subsistence farming. Okay. We are Martin, the second most food secure nation in the world.
Do you think not the Dutch agricultural system, Martin,
not because we produce all of the food that we consume here ourselves. Martin, food systems are hugely integrated now all around the world.
The Dutch horticultural system, with a country the size of Holland that produces 100 billion euros in food, mostly food for human consumption, do you think they're a 1950s system? They use hydroponics,
I don't believe we should revert back to just producing enough food for
our island. So you're saying it's not a 1950s system. We just don't want to change.
And let that be displaced by somewhere that doesn't produce that food as sustainably as we do.
So the 1950s
I want to give a specific example earlier, because there's a lack of specifics here just in terms of this one point. When I talk about farmers making huge progress, I want to give the example. And
we don't have time for an example. We don't have time for an example. I'm going to have to go to the break.
Are a key place where research has benefited, and farmers have reduced their use of artificial fertiliser by 15% last year alone and saved money in the process.